I remember that evening down to the smallest details. Even though it's only been a few days, every image remains vivid, as if I'm watching scenes from a movie. The soft, hazy lighting, the quiet music, the gentle clinking of glasses reflecting warm, subtle light. And in the midst of it all, her. The girl who had just turned 18 that very night. She was the daughter of my business partner, a man I'd known for years. I knew he had children, but I'd never met them before. Certainly, I hadn't expected to see her standing by the window, half turned to the room, chin slightly raised, as if poised at the threshold of a whole new life. Back then, I was sure I had everything under control. I was nearly 40, successful, known in certain circles as a man who could find solutions to any problem. My suit fit perfectly, my tie matched my pocket square, and my watch, evidence of so many achievements, reflected my self-confidence. Social events were routine for me. Champagne, oysters, the gentle hum of voices, people smiling politely while hiding 1,000 unspoken thoughts. I always felt at home in such settings, calm and assured. But that evening, something changed. When I finally noticed her, when our eyes met, the atmosphere seemed to shift, subtle yet undeniable. She wore a simple, elegant white dress, highlighting her slender, youthful figure. Light from the tall windows fell softly on her face. In that moment, I didn't just see a young girl. I saw someone balancing between childhood and adulthood, her eyes sparkling with that mix of excitement and uncertainty unique to turning 18. That moment when you can say, "I'm an adult now," and feel the world open its doors. I didn't approach right away. First, I observed the room, everyone celebrating her birthday, business associates of her father, distant relatives, and a few bright young faces seeking attention. Many guests offered her gifts and praise. She smiled graciously, thanked them, yet there was a hint of distance, as if all this fuss wasn't truly about her. After a while, I chose my moment. I picked up a non-alcoholic punch from a nearby table. No need to push alcohol on her right now. She noticed me approaching, raising an eyebrow in subtle curiosity. Who is he? Why is he coming over? Happy birthday, I said quietly, not wanting to draw everyone's attention. 18 is a big deal. I remember my own 18th birthday. It felt like stepping through a portal into a new world. She smiled, a soft, somewhat shy smile with a hint of courage beneath it. Thank you, she replied, voice gentle and slightly husky, as if the day's emotions had settled there. It's strange. You wait so long for this moment, and when it comes, you're not sure how to feel. I held out the glass. She accepted it. Our fingertips brushed for just a second, sending a tiny spark along my nerves. I think 18 is a symbol, I said, my voice low. It's the age when you cross an invisible line. You're no longer a child, but you don't know all the rules adults live by. It's exciting, and I'm glad you have so much ahead of you. She sipped her drink, glancing around. No one seemed interested in what we were doing. The music changed slightly. Soft jazz replaced by a quiet instrumental tune. The air carried notes of expensive perfume and fresh flowers. I'm a bit scared, she admitted, lifting her gaze to meet mine. Everyone keeps saying I'm an adult now, but what does that mean? How do I know I'm ready? I smiled, forcing myself to remain calm despite the unexpected tension inside me. Her innocence, her curiosity, so refreshing. No one's ever truly ready, I said. Growing up is a chain of discoveries, some wonderful, some painful, and sometimes. I paused, noticing how the lights reflected in her eyes. Sometimes everything changes when you meet people who broaden your view, or when you face situations you never imagined. She nodded thoughtfully just as her father approached, my long-time business partner, slightly puzzled to find us talking. He glanced from me to her. "Everything okay?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she answered calmly, "we're just talking." He gave a short laugh, patted my shoulder and moved on, summoning her to greet another group of guests. She looked at me over her shoulder, a subtle apology in her eyes before she stepped away. I watched her go. Watched the gentle sway of her dress, the way she moved with an unspoken grace. I wondered, what am I doing? Why am I, a seasoned, successful man, so affected by someone half my age? But something about her delicate transition, Her fresh openness, the unjaded way she viewed the world, that was what stirred me. About an hour passed, and after another round of drinks and light snacks, her father led her into the center of the room to give a toast. Everyone fell silent. He praised her intelligence, kindness, and accomplishments. She stood there, smiling shyly, clearly loved and admired. While he spoke, I noticed another young man watching her. He seemed around 20, maybe 22, eyeing her too directly. I didn't like his gaze, too bold, too self-assured. When the toast ended, she mingled again. I considered approaching her once more, but cautiously. Suddenly, I saw her slip toward a quiet corner, a small alcove with a bookshelf, more decorative than functional. I followed, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw that other young man approaching too. A flicker of protectiveness flared in me. I quickened my step and got there first. She stood before the books, head tilted as if trying to read titles in the dim light. I pretended to examine the shelf. "Looks like some interesting additions here," I said softly. "Your father probably wanted this place to feel cultured, like an old library." She turned and smiled, more confidently this time. "Yeah, it's lovely," she replied, "but I doubt anyone's here to read tonight." I raised an eyebrow playfully. "So you're not up for reading either?" She shook her head. "Not tonight. Tonight I want to feel what it means to be an adult, to be free in this new status of mine." Before I could respond, I heard a soft shuffle. That young man had arrived, Oscar apparently. He stepped in too close, forcing me to stand straighter. "Hey, you're the birthday girl, right?" Oscar said, too loudly, too eagerly. "I wanted to congratulate you personally. I'm Oscar. My dad's a partner of your father's investment fund." She turned politely, but I sensed her slight annoyance. "Nice to meet you," she said, voice cooler now. "Thanks for the congratulations." Oscar tried to take her hand with an unnecessary flourish, but she gently pulled back, leaving him to settle for a quick handshake. I stood by, silent, feeling the tension. Oscar glanced at me, measuring me as competition. "Maybe you'd like something more." "Adult?" Oscar teased, smirking. "Some champagne, or maybe I've got something even more exciting." His tone was off, suggestive. I felt my jaw tighten. She glanced at me, then at him, and said firmly, "Thanks, but I'll stick with my cocktail." His smile faded. He tried to impress her with stories of his achievements, his life in London. She gave him nothing. Eventually, Oscar left, clearly frustrated. Alone again, we both relaxed. I couldn't help smiling. "Your new adult status does attract some interesting people." She rolled her eyes, then gave a mischievous grin. "It does. But that doesn't mean I like them." "You—" She paused, choosing words carefully. "You talk to me differently. You're not fake or pushy." It felt like a compliment. Warmth spread through my chest. I took a half step closer. "I'm just trying to understand you. It's intriguing that you're looking for meaning in this night, not just enjoying the gifts and attention. You're asking yourself what adulthood really means." She lowered her gaze, eyelashes fluttering. I caught a soft trace of jasmine. "Maybe I'm afraid of making the wrong move," she said quietly, "afraid of disappointing my dad or rushing into something I'm not ready for. But honestly, I want to feel brave and desired. I want to be admired as a woman, not just someone's daughter." The word woman, spoken softly but with conviction, made my heart skip a beat. "You're already stepping into that world," I murmured. "If you find someone who makes you feel confident, who makes you feel more like yourself, maybe it's worth exploring those feelings." She raised her chin, meeting my eyes again. The music changed, a livelier melody drifting through the air. Some couples began dancing in the center of the room. I looked at them, then back at her. "Would you like to dance?" For a moment I saw indecision. She glanced at the guests, her father, relatives, all expecting certain behavior. Dancing with a much older man, her father's business associate. How would it look? Just then, her father reappeared, slightly tipsy but cheerful. "Oh, you two know each other," he joked. "Great. Maybe you can help her find her way in the adult world." I smiled wryly. She gave me a cautious look, but her father moved on, oblivious. I held out my hand. She hesitated, then placed her hand in mine. We stepped into the makeshift dance floor. I rested my hand lightly on her waist, feeling the gentle curve. her warmth. She placed her hand on my shoulder, our eyes met. We began to dance, slowly, no hurry, as if the rest of the world had faded. I felt her breathing deepen, noticed a flush coloring her cheeks. Each step was careful, respectful. I didn't want to startle her. Around us, other couples moved, but I focused on her. As the dance ended, we remained close, not quite ready to separate. I wondered if she would step back. Instead, she lingered, hesitant yet intrigued. Then Oscar returned, as if on cue. "Nice dance," he said, forcing a grin. "But maybe the birthday girl wants something more exciting. I've got an invite to an after-party." She pulled away from me, facing Oscar with a calm, almost icy look. "Thanks, but I already have plans." Oscar's face fell. He shot me an angry glance and disappeared. Her mother approached, gently reminding her that more guests waited. The girl nodded, sending me a look that said, "Sorry, I have to go." I smiled, releasing her hand. She returned to her guests, graceful and poised. I watched her from a distance now, talking to family and well-wishers. Yet every so often, she'd glance my way. That spark, that subtle tension, it remained. As the evening wound down, guests began to leave. I headed toward the door, and suddenly she was there again, slipping away from the crowd to find me. Checking that no one was paying close attention, she said softly, "Thank you for tonight. It was special." Her voice was sincere, warm. I inclined my head. "This was just your first step into this new world. I'm happy I could be part of it, even if only for one evening." She leaned in slightly, her hair brushing my shoulder. "I think we'll see each other again. You work with my father, after all. But now you're not just some guy from his meetings. You're the one who helped me feel more grown-up and special." My heart thumped, so much warmth and unspoken desire in that moment. I couldn't push further now, too risky. But I knew we'd meet again. Gently, I brushed the back of her hand with my fingertips. "I'd like that. Whenever you're ready." She nodded, her eyes reflecting a new confidence, then slipped back into her role as the gracious hostess. I stepped out into the cool New York night, my mind buzzing. Later, lying awake in bed, I replayed every moment, her words, her eyes, the feel of her body as we danced. Her 18th birthday had become a pivot point, not just for her, but for me. Perhaps it was just a brief spark, or maybe a doorway to something deeper and more profound. Only time would tell. For now, I held on to the memory of that night, her innocence, her courage, and the promise of something that had only just begun.